All right. Well, thanks for joining us, boys and girls. Today is the topic is going to be multiple offers. I mean, they're just. I mean, I do a CE class. This isn't it. So, but I may incorporate some of this information. The CE class is an hour. I don't know if we'll take that long. We can if you want. But it's just. I mean, we live in a multiple offer world. Period. Right. Even we had an agent, Robin, put an offer on a property that was listed for 2.35 million. And the second day, it was on three offers. They went 2.6, 250 above list price, plus a $50,000 escalation clause, and didn't get it. Think about that, and didn't get it. So that's pretty amazing, if you ask me. That that kind of we expect that in the entry level price point or the first step up price point, if you will. The high entry level, the lower step up, whatever you want to call those uh, price points. So when they're in the 2.3 million range, things are different. We're getting a large influx of people from, say, California and Washington. I'm sure Oregon as well, but California, I mean, if they live in the Seattle area, and they have money. Now, here's the cool part. Most of the people that are moving here have money. I mean, they have real money. So they're buying big, expensive properties and then selling their California or Seattle property later. So you can run Facebook ads that targets areas. I think I don't know if can you still do zip codes, Debbie, and on Facebook real estate ads? I know they've really tightened
No,
up
you
on that.
can't.
You can't do a zip code.
No, you can't do a zip code.
What do you have to do? A city?
Yeah.
So that's fine. So you can do a city. Run an ad on. I talk about the concept of a listing, right? So you can create on your IDX page. Most of us have Pro Agent. So let's just pick Lehigh. So you could pick Lehigh or South Jordan or whatever, something that has a real, that has some newer homes that are where you can get a nice 2-story, third-acre lot, at least 3-car garage, things like that. Hey, Deb, I just got a text from Darlene. Can you email her the Zoom link? So
Sure.
she just asked how to get on. I mean, we have to train people to ask you because I can't do it. Anyway, you can target those, but you could create a page on your website that specifically shows, say properties from 600 to $1 million that are minimum those types of properties for a particular city, and then just let it rip, and then or just do the county. But a couple cities might not be, is all you really need, and then you can run an ad that'll say, 4,800 square feet, 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath, 3-car garage, large fence yard, blah blah blah. Looks like you're gonna. Oh, yeah, you can go to. I shared it in our group. It should be in our group, right? And I'm seeing chatter that says, so it should be in our group, and it should be on Wasatch Front Agents, and it should be on our business page. So yeah, it's on our group, and somebody's trying to join. So who's that? So we'll let them in. So Lori Spice approved. I mean Sipes. I said Spice. Oops. Sorry, Lori. So anyway, so you can, and then just target cities and run these ads. So I mean, you could pick up, $700,000 buyer coming from out of town. I mean, they're intensive when they get here. They fly in. You have to really, work with them for several days. But I mean, hey, if you're going to make 20 grand, hello, I've done worse for less. So, think about that. So just take advantage of the market. Whatever the market is, there's ways of marketing to really take advantage of it. And right now, I would say, West Coast higher end buyers, you can run, luxury, a page on luxury that's 1 million plus and start running ads, say in, whatever county Silicon Valley's in, right? Things like that. Anyway, so let's, all right, let's get on with the multiple offer show. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me get to the slides up. So let me go back to the screen there, share, and then there we go. Screen 2, nope. Share. Let's see. All right. You should all be able to see my screen, right? The famous quote of, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training, right? So let's get going. So the first thing I want to say is, if you're a buyer's agent, you just must assume you're making you're in a multiple offer situation. I don't think there's any reason to ask an agent, is there an offer on the table? I think the only, because number one, they don't have to tell you, right? They need to, in fact, if you're the listing agent on this call, you need the seller's permission to disclose whether there's an offer on the table. And if you do disclose, once an agent discloses that there's an offer on the table, they now must also disclose that if the listing agent or if somebody in the listing agent's office is writing one of those offers. So that's just, that's an NAR code of ethics. So I don't think you need to ask, do you have an offer? What you need to be asking is, when are you when do you plan to accept an offer? I think that is the more appropriate question in today's climate. So I think you would all agree with that. So let me get the Q&A up. Let me get let's see what I want. Participants and and I want the chat. Where's the chat? There we go. So I get 3 screens up. All right. Let's see. Okay. So just assume. Just write your offer. There's no reason a listing agent should come back to you and say, by the way, we have multiple offers and you should give me your highest and best. You should already be given your highest and best right away with your initial offer. It should be, the adage of how low can we go and still get it. That's out of the question. That doesn't even work, right? So let's talk about strengthening your offer. If you're the buyer, you need to really strengthen your offer. So let's talk about that. Earnest money, minimum 1%, minimum. If you're a $350,000 offer, this $1,000 earnest money, that's like you're just playing games. You should be putting down $3,500, $4,000, $400,000, $4,000, minimum 1%. And now remember the value of earnest money to the buyer, right? So it has multiple values. One is it's strengthening your offer. 2, in the event that the seller defaults, then the seller would be in a position to, number one, you would get your earnest money back. So let's say, and then they call it double earnest money. So what that means is you get your earnest money back, plus the way our contract is written, the seller default, you would be entitled to, or one of the remedies is, and the most common remedy is, you're entitled to an amount equal to the earnest money. So if you have $1,000 and I'm the seller and I get an offer that's, say, $15,000 higher than yours, I'm just going to send you a notice of cancel and a check for $1,000. And if you cash the check, then you've accepted the liquidated terms, right? You've accepted the equal amount of earnest money as liquidated damages. I mean, I'll sign your title company document, whatever you need. I want that other $15,000. Now, if you have a $10,000 earnest money, are they likely to do that? Probably not. Or let's put it this way, they're less likely to do it if you have strong earnest money. So the strong earnest money serves in a couple purposes. So think about that, right? Here's another one, complete contract. When I receive an offer and it's got blanks and TBD written in there, I don't think highly of that agent. I just don't. I look at that as unprofessional. And the more professional your offer, the better chance you have of getting accepted, right? So think about that, because the idea that your job is to negotiate the strongest and best offer you can get for your buyer, is, well, there's truth in that, but your first job is to get them the house. There's no, the seller's going to get their price. They're going to go above list. They're going to get their terms. They're not going to pay your closing costs. So you're not going to go in there and negotiate, what do you call it, on behalf of the buyer right now. I mean, you're just lucky to get the house. That's your first job. If you can get them a better deal, then that's great. But if you negotiate so strong that the deal fails, well, then you suck. You failed. You screwed up the deal, right? So, so no blanks or TBD, to be determined. If it's not applicable, you can put N/A. That's fine. That shows me you filled it in. But filling it in with TBD is, that's not filling it in. That's just
that says to me that you're not prepared.
Correct. That means the buyer, you haven't talked to the lender. You don't, especially you'll see a lot of TBD in the stack of money in section 2, where it's, it'll say earnest money and then new loan TBD, balance cash close TBD, and then seller financing is left blank, and then it's like, no. Put your earnest money in there, put in there, $8,000, $4,000, whatever it is. Find out what the loan amount. Are they putting 5% down, 10% down, 20%, 3.5% for FHA? If it's 0 for a VA. See, a veteran, even though you can get 100% financing, and a veteran gets true 100% financing, like Utah Housing is, a no money, but it's not a true 100%. What it is, it's 2 loans. So one of them for 6% and the other one's for 96.5. So it's not a true 100% loan, where VA or rural housing are true 100%. I'm not sure about rural, but I know for a fact on VA, the veteran could put up $5,000 earnest money and get all $5,000 earnest money back, because I'll finance it. They can get all their money back. They just can't get above their earnest money back. That's it. So it still behooves you with a veteran transaction to, put a large earnest money down. Because if that's like, well, I want my no money down deal, and they only want to put, $500 to $1,000. Well, you need to explain to them they can get it all back. And you need to make sure that the lender understands that they want that back. But, we'll talk about closing costs a little later. So, and then tight and realistic deadlines, okay? So you want them tight, but you don't want them unrealistic, right? Especially the time of acceptance. You give me 4 hours, and that doesn't mean I'm going to open up my email and snap to it. No, I got a property that's got, 12, 14 showings a day, or more. And, I'm not going to jump to it in 4 hours. I'm going to wait a couple days. So just why bother? Why bother putting yourself in a position that I cannot even accept your offer? I would have to counter offer you. And you see, and you never want counter offers in this position if you can help it. And the reason why is the longer this contract is not signed, the more you run the risk of not getting it. Do you get that? So I may love your offer, but because you gave me such a tight time of acceptance that I have to send you a counter offer that says we accept, we accept all the terms of the REPC, and then give you a new time of acceptance and wait for you to sign it and send it back. In the meantime, 9 and 10 more offers could come in because you screwed around, and then you couldn't get your buyer to sign it in time, whatever. As long as that thing is not signed by both parties, you're at risk of losing the offer. It's that simple. So be realistic. Call the listing agent. Hey, you don't need, like I said, you don't need to ask if there's an offer on the table. You just need to know when are they going to accept an offer. So, I'll tell you how tight it is. Charles had an offer, Charles had a listing, and he published it like on Wednesday or Thursday with showings to begin on Saturday at the grand opening house, right? Well, he received 2 offers above list price prior to even showing it, before even the first showing took place. He had 2 offers above list price. Loved hearing that. In fact, I had to go back and look for those agents and recruit them. So, because I want agents I got. In this climate, if you're a buyer's agent, man, you have to be very, very assertive, aggressive, at the bare minimum, assertive, right? You got to elbow your way up to the front of the line if you want to eat. So, that's just the way it is. So anyway, so tight and realistic deadlines. Hey, look, if you're buying a house that's 3 or 4 years old, you don't need 10 days to do an inspection. You should be calling your home inspector while you're writing the offer. Say, what's today? Tuesday, right? So let's say, say it's your classic. They're going to wait till, the showing start on Saturday. They're going to accept an offer on Monday, and let's say you're writing your offer on Friday, whatever. And they're not going to do offers until Monday. So you could just get your home inspector on the phone and say, hey, what does your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week look like? Say, could you please put me down in pencil? And if something else comes along and it wants that specific time, just, by all means, take that. However, please keep me in pencil as I'm making a strong offer. And, and this is part of getting it. Now we'll go into that a little later. But you want to know. So now you could do your due diligence deadline. So if I know that it's, I'm going to be under contract Monday. So whatever next Monday's date is, the 13th, you could be doing your inspection by the 15th. So, put in there that, the due diligence, 5 days, put the 18th in there. And then and then we'll talk more about that. So that's how you can tighten up your deadline, is get on the inspector's schedule before you even have the offer. But like I said, tell them, don't hold that for me. If somebody else wants it, give it to them, right? The other thing that can make your offer stronger is putting earnest money in Section 8.3B1. And if you're not familiar with it, we have it in our Know Thy REPC section. There's a video that goes into detail about Section 8.3B1 or 3BI, whichever you prefer. That's the clause in the REPC that says buyer and buyer's sole discretion, they're not happy with the terms of the loan, they may cancel the contract and get their earnest money back. However, and then it goes on further to say there's a blank line that says if the buyer cancels after the finance, or after due diligence, but prior to the finance deadline, then the amount of money that's in Section 8.3B1 will be released to the seller afterward. After, what do you call it? Upon canceling, that you give up that amount of money. So what you're telling the seller is that, after the inspection, we're not canceling. If we do, we lose the money. Because see, the finance condition basically says, I could just cancel willy-nilly just because. I don't even need to give you a reason. I can just send you a notice of cancel. We exercise our right. Boom, done. So, and then putting money in 8.3B1 basically negates that. Now, it doesn't mean if you're denied the loan, if you're denied the loan, you lose all your earnest money. So let's say you have a $5,000 earnest money and $2,000 inside Section 8.3B1. So if you're denied the loan, you're going to lose all the money, right? So, and well, let me rephrase that. If you cancel, yeah, you can just cancel and just lose the two. But if the finance appraisal deadline passes, you would lose all the money. Now, the money that's in there is not lost if it does not appraise. It's still, if the property doesn't appraise, the money in 8.3B1 does not negate the appraisal. The appraisal condition still applies. It was never removed from the contract. So, got it? So then we talked about reasonable acceptance. Any thoughts, questions, concerns, hallucinations? So please use the Q&A for questions. So if not, I'm going to move on. Okay. So real estate is an adult word math problem. Gotta love that, right? Think about it. When you're a kid, and you were in school and you had, Johnny went to the store with $2, apples cost blank, whatever, 15 cents. And bananas were a nickel, and Johnny bought 6 apples and 4 bananas. How much change did he have? Right? And you thought to yourself, God, am I ever going to use that? Well, yeah, you're using it now because real estate is an adult word math problem. And here's the word math problem. How, but how do I net the seller more money than the other buyers, handle my closing cost, and live inside an appraisal? That's the adult word math problem you're dealing with. You get that? That's it. And the big key there is handle closing costs. That's huge. We're going to talk about that as time goes, as we get further into this. Closing costs is a big issue. So, escalation clause. This is a tool to keep the buyer from paying more than necessary, but going as high as they have to, right? So the buyer, so if you've never seen one of these, basically what it says is, we're going to offer to pay, if you have if you have competing offers, then we agree to pay up to a certain amount, or no, I agree to pay, say, $1,000 more than your highest offer, but not to exceed a certain amount. Does that make sense? So let's say the seller has a property listed for $325, and we'll pay up to $350 if we have to. But let's say you make your offer at $340, and you say we're willing to go $1,000 more than your highest offer, and the clause talks about net money. We'll talk about that. The $1,000 more than your highest offer, not to exceed $350,000. In other words, we're not going to pay $355, $351, but we'll pay up to $350. So if they have an offer at $342, then you're agreeing in your offer to pay $343, and then the seller, in the escalation clause you're asking the seller to provide proof of other offers. So here's what the escalation clause looks like. Oh, I thought I had it in there. All right, so here it is. I must have skipped a slide around. Right, the following terms will apply. This is a good escalation clause. Competing offers. If prior to seller's acceptance of this REPC, seller receives one or more additional written offers to purchase the property, competing offers with terms of acceptable to seller, which would result in a higher net proceed. See, now there's a key word, higher net proceeds. Purchase price minus any seller concessions. So to seller, from the sale of the property, then the net proceeds which seller would obtain by acceptance of this REPC, then buyer and seller agree to bound to the terms of this escalation clause. Escalation amount. Buyer agrees to increase the purchase price by the amount necessary to permit the seller to realize net proceeds that are blank more than the net proceeds of any competing offer. I mean, you can put 1,000, 5,000, whatever, $750, doesn't matter. Then the cap, the purchase price under this offer shall not exceed whatever, the cap. Documentation, if competing offers cause the escalation of the purchase price in this offer, the seller will provide the buyer with a copy of the highest net offer with personal information redacted for privacy. Multiple escalations. The buyer acknowledges that multiple offers containing escalation clauses may result in multiple escalation, and in some cases escalating to the cap. Very, very well written. Very well written. So like this one. So let's go back, right? So we talked about the escalation clause. That's a way of strengthening your offer, right? So it looks like I have that slide twice, right? So okay, that's where I was confused. So any thoughts, questions, concerns so far on that, where we're at? Let's tighten it up, right? Earnest money minimum of 1%. I mean, minimum. And no, complete contracts, tighten realistic deadlines, possibly putting earnest money. Now, to put earnest money in Section 8.3B1, that means your buyer has to be well into the loan process. Where you might not want to do that is, where the lenders pulled the credit and they talked to the loan officer on the phone, and they told the loan officer how much they made, right? Just because somebody makes a certain amount of money, and then, so here's what happens. Here's where the problem could arise. Let me give you a good example. The buyer is on the phone with the loan officer and says, yeah, I make $75,000 a year. And, and that's great. So the loan officer calculator, whatever, calculates their income, and then, looks at their credit report and says, well, based on the debt, you qualify for this much money. But then the buyer starts sending in supporting documents. The problem is some of that $75,000 was a bonus last year. Let's say they got a $10,000 bonus, right? But there's no history of the bonus. So the lender may not count the bonus as their income. So now their income is $65,000. You get that? I mean, that's a very real, or there's overtime. Let's say the buyer had, $10,000 in overtime, but there's no history. But in other words, if you had a history of the last 3 years of, say, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in overtime, well, they're going to count it. But if you have no history of overtime, they're not going to count it, or they're not going to count at all. They may take your last 3 years and then take an average. Things like if you had a real high jump in salary, let's say you had a job and you got promoted from 50,000 to 75,000, or you left one company and went to another company and you had a job for 75,000, they may start averaging. So until the documents are submitted to the lender, then, we don't know. We just don't know yet.
I think that's why it's incumbent, especially as a buyer's agent in this market, that you have to have everything totally prepared. You need to talk with the lender. You need to go over the documentation. You need to go over scenarios with them on what you can do and what you can't do with this client, so that you're ready when you find the house to make an offer.
Right. Exactly. And then, and that's the key. And then, so, in other words, financing shouldn't be slowed down. You should be at the point where the financing portion of the transaction should just be a formality. In other words, we got to get the title report because the lender needs the title report to approve the loan. the lender also needs, the appraisal. So, and you want to hurry up and get those. I mean, if it doesn't appraise, and you got money in 8.3B1, you could still cancel if it doesn't, so, and the title report should be, you should receive that and get that going right away. Now, be careful if you do a real tight inspection deadline, but a real tight inspection deadline can help you win the bid. And so, but make sure you're getting the title report right away. You're going to have to put a rush on it, and so, and you just have to call your escrow company and say, look, no, I have to have this by X date. We could be in a position to lose our earnest money. Because usually you get the standard title report, but the lender needs the one that's written to that identifies the mortgage company as the insured. So, so where are we at? So yeah, so the loan should be well into place here, right? So, all right, yeah, I got my slides a little mixed up, but that's all right. So anyway, and the reasonable acceptance, we talked about that. Here is your escalation clause, and then here is the next slide. So one of the things I do is I like to add a cover letter with my offer. Now there's two letters you can submit. You could submit one where the the buyer tells why, the buyer's personalizing themselves and telling the seller why they want the home. Now I recommend, if you're the listing agent, that you do not forward those on your seller. They're not part of a written offer. So if you're the seller, and let's say there's pictures or there's mention of religious affiliations, or the fact that it's near a certain type of church, things like that, in a letter.
Fair housing.
Yeah, I mean, the seller could get, the seller could legitimately take the best offer, but it had that letter that could really hurt you in a fair housing, right? And so, don't do that. So don't submit a cover letter. If there's no real identifying information, maybe, if there's, but, I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. They start mentioning, I want to raise my family, versus somebody that doesn't have kids, and that's like, well, that's, are you discriminating? Well, even if you're not, doesn't mean you can't be sued. So be real careful with those types of letters.
Familial status is one of those protected classes, isn't it, on fair housing?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
you're not even supposed to call it a family room.
Right. Well, that's getting a little. What do we call it now? Entertainment room? Gathering room?
I just went to a class one time and they said you really should avoid things that indicate family in there, because
right.
There have been suits from people that didn't have families that were upset because
they didn't have a
family was in there, and it indicated that a family should be there.
So they thought they couldn't use the room if they didn't have a family?
Apparently.
So does living room, is that like offending dead people now? I mean, hello?
Yeah, but dead people have no status,
Why not? They vote. So, I mean, if they can vote,
apparently
they can certainly
do.
Yeah, if they can vote, they can certainly sue you for that, right? So, anyway. So, like, what I like to put in my letter is I like to let them know, hey, look, we're, you could put in there, hey, we don't have offers on more than, we don't have any other offers pending, things like that. You can say, we'll be using my lender, Larry Lender with Acme Mortgage. Larry and I have worked together for 10, 15 years. If it's a lender, if you're newer and it's a lender that I use or recommend, then you can use, you could say, we've been working with this lender for X amount of years. Things like that. So same thing with the home inspector. We'll be using, ABC, Acme Home Inspection, we've worked together for 15 years. Things like that. So, and then another thing is, I would even let them know we're willing to close with your title company. I mean, whatever it takes. This is, this is, to quote the Talking Heads song, right? This ain't no party. This ain't no disco. This ain't no fooling around. And the name of the song is called Life During Wartime. So this is a real battle to get your offer accepted. It just is. I mean, they can have 30 showings on a Saturday, people piled on top of each other, and then have, 8, 9, 10 offers. And people are raising them up, but, but you still have to live inside the appraisal. I mean, that's really, that's a big issue. Raising them up. I mean, you can go an extra $100,000. However, but if it's not going to appraise, it's irrelevant unless you're paying cash. So it's more. I talk more about the cover letter. So here's an idea of what a cover letter might look like. Besides this information here, right? You want to have in your cover letter, it says, action items, right? So get permission from your buyer. An email's fine, saved email. Say, do I have permission to divulge your credit score? And somebody with high credit score. Now, if they have a 632 credit score, do not divulge that. If they have above 720, yeah, get permission. Really strengthen your offer, right? And let them know that your buyer has provided the following documents to the lender. Besides, obviously the credit report, but the lender's in possession of, because if I'm the seller's agent, if I'm the listing agent, I want to know, have you pulled the Tri-Merge credit report? Now, I can't ask them what the score is. I mean, I could. That doesn't mean they have to tell me. But I can also ask, have they provided you with, in other words, I'm going to ask the loan officer, are you in possession of, and have you reviewed the following documents, right? Tax returns, bank statements, pay stubs, retirement account, especially, if their down payment's coming from there, right? And then me personally, so if I'm working with a buyer, I want the buyer to either fill out the lender's authorization form with their payment authorization, right? It's going to have their debit card or whatever filled in. So they're not going to run the card, or they're not going to cash a check, but I want the buyer to have that document signed. I want that check to be sitting in a folder on the lender's desk, because I want to be able to disclose to you, and I would even put in here to about my home inspection. But I want to let you know that we've done all this work. The lender has a check sitting on their desk waiting to order the appraisal. And I've already talked to my home inspector. We got a home inspection penciled in from 3 days from now. So as soon as we're finished our inspection, then we're going to order the appraisal. So if you do this right, you can literally have the inspection done and the appraisal back within 10 days. And if that's the case, then the lender and everything else is already done. Your lender could submit to underwrite, and they're buried in underwriting. So maybe 4 days later, you get a couple conditions. I mean, so we're talking, 14 days, and you already got your conditions. You can close, meet a couple minor conditions. There's always something, right? You saw the Facebook meme that says, from the memo from the underwriter, it says, your name is Robert, but one of the documents said Rob, and we're going to need, and they listed like 19 items, I mean, that's just the way it is. So, there's a bunch of little, what we call housekeeping items, things like that. So, but if you do it right, there's no reason you can't close in 3 weeks. Now, a condo may slow you down a little bit if you don't have all the condominium information up front. Now, for example, I just listed a condominium, and I had the CC&Rs, the rules and regs, already on the website, along with some of the financial documents. I think I had those. Well, I had those before I received an offer. When I published the listing, I had the first two. But before we received any offers, we had all those documents online, attached to the listing. So what could slow you down on a condo purchase is the seller getting you the HOA documents so you can provide those to the lender, because the lender needs to approve the HOA as well as the borrower. So, but there's no reason you can't close in 3 weeks, even in this climate, if you do it right. And so everything has to be lined up, and you just have to simply educate your buyer on how to do on the importance of all that information being provided to the lender, and the lenders ran it through automated underwriting and and has an approval already. So anyway, any thoughts, questions, concerns here?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to what you and I've been preaching, or you've been preaching, that you just have to be prepared when you do an offer. And it is so important to take your buyers through all of that before you get to the point of even taking them out, because they don't have the luxury of saying, well, here's this really great house, now I'm going to go see a lender and get all that stuff together, because the house is going to be gone before you get that done.
Right.
So before you even take them out, they need to be pre-approved and approved as opposed to pre-qualified.
Right. Because pre-qualified means,
nothing.
based on the information you gave me, you qualify for X. But then the documentation shows up and it doesn't corroborate the information. So it doesn't, it's not, it's conflicting, and the lenders are not creative. They're going to go with the lower of the two numbers. So, and frankly, why not have your buyer listen to this video, right?
That's a great idea.
If you have your buyers listen to this video, they're going to get it more than if you try. Because this is a 43-minute video so far, right? Yep. 45. But anyway, so any thoughts, questions, concerns, hallucinations? I hope everybody's awake still. So you're all awake? All right. So there's going to be a page on the site a little later today that's going to have, oh, I know what I didn't do. Nope, we're not ready. I am going to go through the multiple offer spreadsheet. So let me stop sharing the screen and let me bring another screen up, and I'm going to share this one with you. So, no, where's it at? Share screen. I forgot about this. So this is a tool. So there's going to be a web page up, and there's going to be I'm going to create that. We're going to have that. We're going to put the language for the escalation clause, so you can just copy and paste it in an addendum, rather than put the addendum up there where you have to fill it in with the PDF editor. We'll just put the language you can copy and paste in an addendum. So, and we're going to put a link to this. So what happens is when you get the link, you're going to download this and see, look, Heather's already in there, right? Heather's working on this file. So you got to make a copy. So what will happen is you don't have edit rights to this, but what you do is you go to File, you make a copy. So you can see this is a copy of multiple offer worksheet. So I've made multiple copies of this. And then once you make a copy, then you have edit rights to your copy. So when you click on the link, just make sure you're logged into your Gmail account. And if you don't have one, then you need to get one. And so, and then once you have it, and then once you save one to your system, your Google Drive, then what you want to do is make a second copy and then rename that second copy based on the client's name and address. And then that way there, you can share that with your client. So you can fill this in. So let's go ahead and let's change the color of that one. So now, so you could fill it in, right? So I'm going to put, Bob Buyer, right? Bob Buyer. And then there's formulas in here. So let's say the price is $350,000. And then the escalation clause has 25,000 more. So, or you can just say 375. In other words, they're willing to go to 375. There's these should be switched, so I'll do that. I'll do that before it's on the site. So let's say the earnest money is $5,000, and then you got 2,500 in your 8.3B. You can leave that blank, but there is a section where after a certain due diligence, section 8.4, the buyer agrees to put up even more earnest money. So, and then that'll work. So if it's 0 for now, you just put 0 in there. So loan amount you put in there. Let's say they're getting $350,000, and then balance of cash to close. No, the loan amount. I'm sorry, 300,000. Balance of cash to close will be 50,000. Actually, it'd be minus the earnest money, so it'd be 45,000. And then concessions, right? So to say the concessions are 0 and the home warranty 0. So the effective price is, so this cell right here is going to be the purchase price minus concessions and home warranty. So let's say we put 5,000 in the concessions and then 500 in the warranty. So it's going to give you an effective price of 344,500. Then you come down to your loan types. You got a little arrow. You click that arrow on, and you put conventional, and then you put inclusions. Whatever's in the MLS, whatever's in their offer, just copy and paste it. If it says exclusion, copy and paste. This is if there's water shares. Most of the time, you're not going to be using that, so you can kind of ignore that. And then these are the deadlines. You put the disclosure deadline. It's due diligence. I should change that right now. Due diligence. I like my things to match the REPSI exactly, especially if you have, you have a newer agent and they're like, well, they didn't match, finance and appraisal. So, so these are just deadlines, right? That you can use. And then other subject to sale, settlement, possession. So you can line these all up and then make any comments about the agent. See, then you can share this with your seller, because, let's say you have 5 offers, and each offer is like, got the 6 pages of the REPSI. There's, 1 addendum each, so now you're talking, you have like, 5 offers minimum, like, 7 pages, 35 pages. You're not going to send out all over. We're going to have a page, Becky, and the page may already be built, but we're going to add all this to that page, but we're going to add the escalation clause. We're going to kind of add a summary of this meeting, but we're also going to have the video, and then we're going to have all this information on that page. So this is a very, very powerful tool. And so I'll switch these 2 around. Let's do that right now. And earnest money. So that way when it's shared, it'll be right. So there we go. Oh, that was wrong. But anyway, you get it. You get it. So, this is very intuitive. You need to, so you can't screw this up. This is locked. So if you go to here, you see the padlock. So this sheet 2, it shows you the loan types. So that's written there. So when you go here, that's how you pull those down. You can either click on it or just start typing. So anyway, any other thoughts, questions, or concerns?
I think that's brilliant. I love that. That's the first time I've seen that.
So, so in other words, I'm brilliant. And
yes.
You know what? And you know what? You're right.
You totally agree with me, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was married a long time, Debbie. I know how to agree with the woman. Too. So anyway, yeah, so this is all going to be, we're going to have a recap on the page, copy of the video, a link to the spreadsheet, and we're going to have the language for the escalation clause for you to copy and paste, right? Got it? So if there are no more questions, no more thoughts, anybody have any questions, thoughts, concerns, hallucinations, you know the drill. If not, I am going to go about my other part of the day, which is I try not to look at my text messages or my emails while I'm on class because it just frightens me the amount. So so anyway, that's it. I'm going to go, boys and girls.
Okay.
So you
I'm going to
have
end
an
the
amazing
meeting
day.
now. Have
Yep.
a great day.